Real Estate Pro Talk with your host, Greg Ernie, connecting people, community and property.
Well, hello and welcome back. Greg Ernie here. Welcome to our third part of our four-part series on the changes to the Residential Tenancies Act. Today, we are going to be talking about another key point. I think this will have some big changes or implications for landlords, certainly around their liability or obligations for a property, and that is on electrical and gas safety compliance requirements. I want to welcome back Tracy. Welcome, Tracy, as we work our way through.
Thanks, Greg. Good to be back.
Great to have you. So electrical and gas safety compliance requirements. This is a new and probably the biggest change. And I know we're still learning a fair bit about this. We're still waiting for more information to come. But first thing, if you want to open up, what has to be checked and talk to us about the new requirements.
Okay, so when it comes to electrical installations, fittings and appliances, along with any gas fitting and appliance within a property, now has to have a compliance and safety check. It's mandatory. You cannot, it just has to be done.
Yep.
So we are waiting on the, I suppose, the checklist of what does need to be ticked off within these compliance checks, but an owner has to do it, and they have to be done by the proper qualified tradesperson.
Yep.
So with the electrical, it needs to be done by a proper, either a licensed or registered electrician. And for gas, of course, it has to be a qualified gas plumber.
Yep.
So owners do not want to be attempting to do these checks themselves if they don't have those qualifications.
And how often do these checks have to be done?
Every 2 years. So yes, it's a cost to an owner. And this is where I would be thinking, when they have these compliance and safety checks done, they'll be able to tell us if the heaters are an energy efficient 2-star heater.
Yep.
They'll be able to have a look at the switchboards and say whether they will need upgrading over the next 2 years.
Yep.
So they have to be done every 2 years, peace of mind, and your property managers can arrange it. And we're in the midst of getting some quotes at the moment for our landlords.
Yep.
But if you have someone within your family that is a qualified plumber or electrician, of course they can do it, but they still need to report that information to the agent.
So and this is where the sleeper is. Because I know we look after a lot of properties for plumbers, for electricians. Yes, you can go and do your own checks, but the key thing here is it's got to be done religiously every 2 years. And I know, to me this is a real sleeper that someone gets it checked, gets the property checked, it's all ticked, it's all good, then they forget to do it in 2 years' time, and God forbid that something happened to the tenant in the property a result of a faulty gas heater, putting carbon monoxide into the lounge room, or something like that, or someone gets electrocuted or something. To me, this is the checking is the one thing. But, where you mentioned about we're getting quotes, we're in discussions at the moment with a number of organisations that in essence, we will employ to monitor this, and it'll be part of their systems that this will happen every 2 years religiously,
Exactly.
Rain, hail or shine.
They need, whoever we speak to, need to have something in place or a program in place that know exactly when they need to be done.
Yep.
Because they're getting paid to do the work. It's every 2 years, so they need to be coming to us and going, okay, we will record it on our system. We have to record it on our system, because if a tenant requests or wants to know when it was done, we have to supply them in writing within 7 days of that request of when the safety checks were done.
Yeah.
So there's not just reporting on companies. We need to know, and we need to record it so we can provide that information when it is requested.
Correct. So how often? 2 years. Requirements on landlord. Is there anything else on the requirements at all, Tracy? I think that's basically electrical, gas safety, compliance. And the fourth question I had there is what a new tenancy starts and it hasn't been done. That's probably coming into you when it was checked last, I would imagine.
So on the day of a new tenancy, if it hasn't been done in the last 2 years, an owner has to do it as soon as practical. So they haven't given a time frame. They've just said as soon as practical.
But once again, if a landlord doesn't get it done or leaves it too long, they're, in essence, once again, they're leaving themselves open. Should
something happen?
Correct. That's right.
So it's mandatory.
Yep.
It has to be done, and it has to be recorded, and we need to know. See, I'm still waiting on information. Okay, we need to record and provide the tenant in writing when it was last done, but we're probably going to need a copy of what was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it does need to be in line with what needs to be done with these compliance and safety checks. It's a bit like the smoke alarms, Greg. You know, a lot of owners engage third parties to look after their smoke alarms because they have to be checked annually.
And the reason they're engaging the third party is A, to make sure the smoke alarms get done, but also what it is doing is it is passing over the legal liability obligation across to this third party as well, which is from a landlord's perspective, I think is really smart to do so.
Oh, of course. And a lot of owners think it's just changing a battery. It's not just changing a battery. It's making sure that they are compliant and in the designated areas that they need to be.
Yep.
It's also doing a smoke test. It's also to make sure that they do go off in the event of a fire. Just pushing a button doesn't mean it's going to go off in the event of a fire. And what a lot of owners don't realise, smoke detectors have a 10-year lifespan.
Yeah.
So whoever checks the expiry date on a smoke detector, this company does.
Yeah.
Because after 10 years, they need to be replaced. So the requirements for the electrical and gas are going to be very similar, but more in depth than your smoke alarms. And when the smoke alarms came in, we handled that, we did it, and that works fine. It'll be the same for the gas, electrical and gas compliance.
Yep.
So
and it's interesting, and this is where there's no doubt. I've had a number of landlords. In fact, I had one call me this week. He's like, "Oh, you're aware of these changes?" I said, "Absolutely, I'm aware of these changes." And this landlord's like, "Well, I'm going to have to put my rent up," and you know this will certainly be a factor for landlords. This landlord actually made the comment. He said, "I'm not sure. Actually, I'm weighing up whether I'll even sell my 2 properties that I've got because I don't know whether I want the liability for the amount that it's going to cost to get these things inspected and so forth." So, you know, there'll be changes, there'll be implications to these things that will come in that, you know, obviously for landlord, I don't know how much it's going to cost for these inspections to happen, but it's fair to assume it's you know, it might be, I don't know, I'm not going to say a figure because we're still
working on it, but just from what I've looked into, I mean, your smoke alarms is $99. It's like a subscription. It's $99 a year.
Yep.
That includes changing the smoke alarm if there's something wrong with it.
Yep. In other words, they check it. If it's wrong with it, they'll just fix it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And if they go out 2 or 3 times a year, it's all within that $99 subscription.
Yep.
So it really is good value and it's tax deductible.
Yep.
So with the electrical and gas compliance, now that's going to be every 2 years. So,
Yep.
you know, look, from what I'm seeing at the moment, you know, it could be around an extra $400 a year.
Yep.
You know, it might be $800 over 2 years. So if you break that down to a yearly cost,
Yep.
$400 a year. But until we've got it in writing from some of these companies,
Correct. Yep. Working through, but
working through it.
I know for some landlords they'll be watching this going, oh, you know, there will be, you know, no doubt rent will go up, and you know, because these things at the end of the day, the landlords, you know, they've got mortgages and they've got everything else to go with it, so there will be a spin-off. It will affect everybody across the board.
It will be an interesting time, Greg. You know, I sort of wonder what will this do to the rental market.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I sort of think if an owner does think, you know, this is too much and decide to sell their property, what's going to happen? There's going to be a shortage of rental properties. And if there's a shortage, prices are going to go up.
Yes.
So it'll be very interesting to see the long-term effect of this,
Absolutely.
to see whether owners just go, well, okay, let's just stick with it.
Yep.
And I have no doubt rents have been pretty stable for the last few years. So,
mind you, Tracy, I can say just with what property values are doing, the one thing that has been fairly consistent with growth is has been property. So it's that's certainly always something to factor. But anyway, we're not talking about rents or the value of property today. Anything else on electrical and gas safety requirements?
not at the moment, because we are waiting on more information to come through, but that's just a broad overview of what's coming.
Excellent. Tracy, thank you for, you've covered that well. And we're now going to be moving across to our fourth part, which is selling a property that's tenanted. So we'll wind it up here. And for those landlords that would like to tune in now for episode 4 of selling a property that's tenanted. Tracy, thanks again.
Thanks, Greg.